Hey everybody, it's Elias from Drum Channel, and today I'm really excited I get to break down one of my favorite Prince songs, Purple Rain.
Purple rain, purple rain. Purple rain, purple rain. Purple rain, purple rain.
So what I think is really important about this song, and probably my favorite part of this song, is the drum sound and how he gets such a huge epic drum sound. You know, it's that typical big snare, like tuned really low with tons of reverb, your classic anthem rock ballad sound. And I really feel like Prince kind of pioneered that in the studio and brought it to him live. And Jonathan Melvoin does an incredible job of making it feel so good and having that huge sound. It's a combination of electronics, reverb, and acoustic, and it's really what defines this era and this sound and the whole album, Purple Rain, because obviously, the song Purple Rain comes from the whole album Purple Rain. But what we're going to do today is kind of just break down the foundation of this song. We're going to go over some of the sections, but essentially, we're just going to be going over how he got that sound, along with how to break down the groove of this song, the 16th note based ballad rock groove, and then we are going to go over some of the later sections during Prince's guitar solo, where there's some hits, and it just really adds a lot of drama, honestly, to this song, and it creates such a emotional part of the song. At least for me, that's the way I feel about it. But yeah, let's go ahead and let's get started, and we're gonna break down the 16th note groove. So we're going to start around 58 BPM, which is where the song's tempo is. It's pretty slow. I would recommend practicing that with a metronome set to 58 and just trying to get each limb one at a time together. So right now I'll play a 16th note rock ballad groove. You'll notice I added some open hi-hats and maybe a few different bass drum notes. This is what he does on the recording. Basically, he's adding a 16th note bass drum to the last 16th note partial of the groove. So it's 1E and a 2E and a 3 and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3 and a 4E and a 1. Practice that slowly with just 16th notes first. Now let's see if we could take it to the next level and add an open hi-hat on the of 4. So that would be 1E and a 2E and a 3 and a 4E and the fourth 16th note of the 4. So we're going to open the hi-hat and also play a bass drum. So this is what that sounds like. Pretty basic. So there's a few other things I think we could do. We could add some more hi-hat variation to the mix. I'll go through a few different hi-hat patterns that are relevant to the song and that you can include in your practice when learning this song. The first one will be just straight eighth notes. So instead of 16th notes on the hi-hat, you're going to be playing eighth notes. Here's what that sounds like. Okay, that's pretty basic. The next step is to add some 16th notes. So let's do a 16th note pattern, a 3-note pattern. That's 1 E and. So on the hi-hat, right hand, you're going to be playing 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and. All right, let's break it up even more. Let's add another 3-note 16th groove, and the pattern is 1 E and So So now let's add it all together. You can kind of improvise between everything we've gone over and just focus on sounding like what the record sounds like. You'll see on the transcription too, it's all written out, but it's essentially just a combination of what I just played. And I'll demonstrate that right here. So play around with that. And aside from just watching the transcription, trying to read and figure out exactly what he's doing, I would just improvise with what I showed you, and you're gonna capture what the feel of the song is. All right, so the next step is to talk about the fills in this song. He plays the same fill pretty much identical throughout the song, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 times. But it's a 16th note fill, and basically it includes snare and toms. And the rhythm of it starts on 3. So I'll play it, I'll count out loud so that you can hear where it is rhythmically. So just in case you didn't get that, that's 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and 4 E and a 1. So you can do that multiple ways. Honestly, it doesn't really matter sticking wise what you do. It might be easier to do left, left, right, left, right. But mess around with that and do what feels right to you. Now we'll go into maybe a little bit trickier part of the song towards the end, where it's just the energy is way up there and there's some hits that go along with the guitar solo. Essentially, there's kind of like a skeleton rhythm that the drummer's playing, and that goes like this. So you can play this rhythm multiple ways, and he does several different ways on the actual recording. But the skeleton groove is really just 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and split across the kick and the snare. It sounds like this. So I'll play that again with the full kit, full orchestration. I'll improvise some of the ways that he does it, spread amongst the toms and some of the crashes and the ride. So I encourage you to learn, obviously, what he does on the song, but also just try to play what you would play and interpret it, listening to the song how you would do it yourself. Because really, there's no right or wrong way to do that. And it's all laid out in the transcription if you want to get exact with it. So that wraps up the playing portion of this lesson. Now let's go into the sound of it all. So for me personally, I got a really deep snare drum. I'm doing it's I think a 6.5 by 14. It's the typical Black Beauty brass snare drum, and for me, I tuned it really low and just dampened it quite a bit. So I got kind of a low ballad rock sound. This is what it sounds like. You obviously notice that there's a ton of reverb, and one of the significant parts in the sound of this drum sound was the amount of reverb on the snare. I believe they used the Lexicon reverb. So I don't have that, but personally, I just add any kind of plate reverb if you're recording, or if you're playing live, you can just add some reverb to the snare. That's generally what people do anyways. This is probably just a little bit more than you would typically hear in maybe modern music. But definitely a big sound of the 80s is adding a ton of reverb to your snare and your toms. You might want to stay away from adding reverb to the kick and maybe the cymbals, but I would say a good place to start is just by adding some to the snare drum and then maybe a little bit on the toms. So play around with that if that's an option for you. If not, you can get away with a lot just by tuning the drums and getting that sound, that big, deep ballad snare sound. But aside from that, you have bright cymbals. Today, I brought out my brighter cymbals. I have a Brilliant Crash on my left that sounds like this. And then I have a variety of different cymbals that kind of are more on the high frequency sound spectrum. This ride cymbal specifically is very pingy and it cuts. It's perfect for this rock ballad style. So those are some of the ways you can get closer to replicating the sound, the original sound on the record, and the sound of that time, really. So now that we've discussed the sound of the song, the groove of the song, and different sections of this song and how to play that and apply that, the next step is obviously to just play the song and to see if you can follow along too with the transcription. Everything is note for note laid out for you. You can also loop features of the song. So if there's one of those tricky areas, maybe in the guitar solo, that you want to practice, you can just get those 4 or 5 bars and just loop that over and over and practice and dig into how the drummer did it. So that wraps up this lesson breakdown. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you have fun playing it. We'll see you on the next one.